Just took my first listing from a postcard, sent that postcard out 12 days ago, and today I signed a listing agreement. If you want to hear about that, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Mike Cerrone with 2 listings per month. And if you've been part of the channel, you know that we were doing some experiments where we have a goal of sending out mail, direct mail, typically postcards. That is the medium we're working in. And we're sending this to strangers, these postcards, people we don't know. And by the way, they're people that want to sell their home, typically for sell by owners and expired listings. We may increase that in the future, but that's who we're targeting today. We're sending out this direct mail, these postcards, and we're looking for a response to come back in. So we just did that, and let me just continue that. The goal is, of course, then to list 2 properties per month from those efforts and do it in a reasonable amount of cost and time. In fact, we're trying to spend a little bit of money to save a little bit of time. That's the objective. The goal is to work less than 2 hours per day to make sure that those mailings get out. By the way, that could later then be assigned off to, say, an assistant, a virtual assistant, or one that's local to get some leverage. But currently, I'm doing that myself, and you probably should do that in the beginning as well for all these tests to make sure that they're working properly. So working 2 hours per day or less, listing 2 properties per month or more. And the other goal there is to make sure that you earn at least 2 points, 2% on each transaction. Those are the objectives. And so we've been doing some experiments. As you know, you've been listening again to the channels. If not, you can go back and listen to other videos. We sent out our first experiment, and it did okay. We got 4 calls, and they're kind of in various levels of maybe. Actually, one was a complete no because they just ghosted me, and the others were like a secondary and then 2 maybes. Then we sent out a second group. I actually started to send out a third group to test, and that's what just worked just currently. We'll see. Again, I'm doing a lot of testing and tracking, and that's what you want to do. Sorry, by the way, that these are so raw and I'm kind of babbling, but hopefully you're getting the point and this is helpful. So we sent out this third postcard, and again, sent it out on the 21st. Today is the 2nd. And so if I'm doing the math right, that's 12 days. So in 12 days from when we sent it out, and the way I'm doing that takes a little while for it to land with the weekend and everything. It took about 7 days for the series to land to me. So I'm assuming it's about the same to everybody else. So it probably landed. They looked at it, looked at some other stuff, and within 5 days, they gave us a call. I guess if you want to kind of think about what happened in their world. And bottom line for us, sent it out, and 12 days later, actually, you know what? I better back up because we actually spoke 2 days ago. So that would have been 10 days. Let me clarify that. I guess they called within 10 days of the postcard going out, scheduled a listing appointment for 2 days later, which is today. Schedule that for the morning, by the way. You can schedule these anytime you want. We did a 10 o'clock in the morning appointment. So my other goal, by the way, is to do all these appointments and do all the work between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. In fact, that was part of my presentation today. Is my hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I put it in the listing agreement to say, you instruct me to tell all other agents those are my hours, and I will not work outside those hours, and don't give us any deadlines or any other things outside those hours. If you do, we'll be talking the next business day. Okay, so there's ways to make this world work for you if you're willing to push through and do that. Okay, so anyway, went out and met with this gentleman, very nice. He's relocating out of our area, so it's a sell end only, and we're going to be talking with finding an agent for him for the other end and maybe get a referral fee on that. I think that the transaction will go pretty smoothly. He was reasonable on price. The other thing I think is important, I gave you, now I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. I just wanted to throw this out to you real quick, kind of fun. We put together a listing presentation that I showed you that I do, and that's what I had. I had a nice little packet, a listing presentation, started to go through it. He's a very inquisitive fella, And so he was just asking questions. So what ended up happening was we bounced all over and around through that packet. So I zipped to the front, zipped to the back, zipped to the over. So you got to have a little flexibility, but I had all the data right there, which is really good. And you also have to be very open about what the outcomes are going to be. I just went over there saying, I'm going to just give this guy all this information. If it works, great. If it doesn't, great. Whatever happens is fantastic. And so, for instance, I got to the end of the information and was waiting for his next question because he was asking a lot of questions. And his next question was, ready? Hey, Mike, do you have the paperwork so we can get this done? Don't you love this kind of questions? So I'm like, yeah, here we go. And then as we're talking, he mentioned that he was a for sale by owner. He's talked to a lot of people. And he said that I was the first one he talked to. He didn't think was trying to sell him stuff and trying to convince him to do some weird, wacky thing. He also, in his conversation, he was saying a lot of agents were talking to him where they were doing statements that would oppose one another, right? I was trying to think of an example, but they were just things that people would say one thing and then their actions would show something else. And that was like a red flag, and he'd immediately back up from that and ask them to leave. So I think you're going to be way ahead if you just tell him the truth. And when I was there talking to him, there were multiple times where he would ask me a question and I'd answer and he'd say, oh, that's not good. That's not good. And I'd say, well, you can like it or not, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, that's fine. So we got to the end. He's like, you're just a real straight shooter, aren't you, Mike? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, I like that a lot. And he was from New York, and he said he likes when people are direct and just give straight answers, whether they like it, the other person likes the answer or not. And that's what happened. I think what else I can give you that was helpful. I had everything prepared, including that net sheet. He wanted to go through that net sheet, and we had it there so he could see all the information. And in fact, once we got through the net sheet is when he said, hey, do you have the paperwork? Let's do this. Okay, now I've been bouncing around a little bit in the program, as I mentioned, but that was when he had a turning point. And my old way of doing the presentations was, I'm pretty sure that is the thing that I would end on before we go into paperwork, which is net sheet. And I'd ask them if this is enough money to get them where they want to go. And they would say, yes. And I'd say, great, you're ready to hire me. And they would say, yeah, typically, it's funny, you got to kind of ask which for what you want, but usually these things, they just kind of flow naturally to a conclusion if the other person is motivated or not. Now, did they all end up signing? No. I did one earlier, a couple weeks ago, and nothing happened. Although it could have. It was a very elderly gentleman, about 81, and I felt very nervous, pushing too hard. I did not want to push too hard. I know other people would have, but I don't. And so I wanted to give him a lot of space, and it was an investment. He had to think about a couple things. And so that one's still out there. He and I will chat some more. Trying to think what else I can tell you. Oh, a couple other things on this one that was interesting. So this was a for sale by owner. And one of his big things was that he'd been talking to people, and he didn't like this junk fee. He kept mentioning junk fee because agents were throwing in, I'm guessing there may be transaction fees or processing fees or some other fees. And he did not like that. And so he kept asking, do you have junk fees? Do you have junk fees? I'm like, no, I don't have any junk fees. And then we did the net sheet, and all through that part, he's saying, well, good, I don't see any junk fees. Okay. It's interesting. Everybody has their thing, right? And so that was interesting. The other part, he kept asking about, how could he maximize the price and save the money? Like everybody, he's trying to maximize his return. Asked about taxes and other things, and I had to refer him to a CPA and some information that could give him. I gave him some of the basics, but I told him he's got to go talk and get some more professional help to make sure that everything's correct for him. One of the things that I think you should know is that in this particular offer, there were multiple offers of service and fee structure. Okay. And so I thought for sure this guy was going to go to the lowest cost. We got to the programs. He kept saying, hey, show me those programs again. Cool. So I show him the programs. And in my experience, by the way, in the past, If you give people three options, they'll pick the middle one 90% of the time. Sometimes they'll pick something else, but usually they pick the middle. But I'm expecting this guy to pick the lowest one because he kept talking about dollars and cents. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, whatever you want to do. And so, but I presented to him, and he's looking at everything, and he says, okay, tell me those numbers again. What is the difference in actual dollars between? Because I'm showing percent. And he says, what's the dollars between these two things? And I explained that to him, and he goes, okay. And he says, show me what you're going to do. And I showed him. And I'm like, well, you probably don't need this. He said, oh, I like that. We're going through the different parts of the program. I said, well, you probably don't need this, thinking, he could go down and do a less expensive program. Like, you probably don't need this. He's like, no, I want that. Like, okay, well, you probably don't need this. No, I want that too. Okay, well, you probably could get away without doing this. Nope, that sounds good. I always like that. All right. And we're just going down the list. And so we get to the end. I say, well, great. Well, which one of these would you like to do? And he said, oh, I want this one, the top one with everything. So you need to have an everything program. All right. And so he picked the premium program that has everything. You would have never guessed it with the way that this had all started. So maybe that's helpful to you as well. Because I know he had called initially because he thought it was neat that there was this lower option. But once he actually looked at everything and understood what they were, he wanted the premium option. Okay. So you got to give people choice. You give people choice and give people an option. And usually they'll sell themselves. In fact, that's exactly what happened. In fact, that's what he told me. He said, which one of these should I pick? I said, I don't know. I can't choose for you. You have to pick. And he said, oh, okay. Well, I want that one. And then later he said, I'm really glad you didn't try to sell me on one of them. I said, well, it's your choice. And so, by the way, that happened on the selection of the plan. That happened on price. He said, well, what should I price this at? I said, I can't price this for you. You must price this. I said, remember, I had already told him, I said, remember, price at the low end and you'll sell fast, but you can leave money on the table. Price at the high end, you might not get a seller, it might take a long time. And so you have to choose which is most important. And he kept saying, I have a lot of time. I'm not in a hurry, because he was retired and some other things. And so in the end, we got back down there. He said, well, what do you recommend on the price? I said, well, you have to choose, remember? You got to choose the price. And so he did. And he picked, by the way, let me give a little more. We were able to reduce it down to a range because of the cells in the area, the cells and the actives. It was a pretty clean bracket. And so, it's between this, and this. This is the zone. Now that's my advice. You can do anything you want, but you probably want to be in that zone. And he said, okay, I want to be right there. And I said, that makes total sense to me. And so people will do the right thing if you give them choices, right? I think Paul Wheeler likes to talk about that a lot. And what else can I tell you about the situation? Was prepared with all the information, of course. I know that sounds weird, but a lot of agents apparently show up unprepared, just kind of wing it. He told me strange things about what other agents had said that happened both the appointments out there. There are some weird things agents are saying. I'm not going to repeat them here because some of them sound a little unethical or even illegal, in our area at least. But maybe they misunderstood, so that's why I'm not going to repeat. Just make sure you're clear and you're very straightforward, and that you're presenting all the options and everything is in writing for everybody, so everybody knows where they're going to go. Let me give you some more. By the way, there was some more higher level tips. So this guy, he has a sister who's an attorney, and he wants the sister to review everything. I said, great, that sounds fantastic. I said, in my agreement, by the way, I have an easy exit listing, and I said, you can terminate this anytime. We can go ahead and just get the paperwork done now, and if it doesn't work out, you just terminate it. I've done that in the past very successfully, and most people will accept that, and that's the end of it. So he did too, except he said, well, I really don't want to give you all the paperwork until after I've talked to my sister. I said, no problem. Tell you what, let's fill everything out. I'm going to leave everything with you. Okay. And then once you review it with your sister, you call me up and I'll come pick up my copy and we'll get things started. And he said, yeah, that's fantastic. So we went through all the agreement. We changed. I usually end up changing things because I kind of have it pre-filled in, and we're changing things, and he's initialing, and we're putting in the price, and he's initialing, and we're going through, and we get to the end, and he signs, and I sign, and we have 2 copies now, all signed and dated and everything, and all the disclosures. And as I mentioned, typically at that point, the seller usually says to me, "Oh, we'll just take this and go. I feel good now," or "I'm okay with it," or "I'll cancel if I need to," or whatever. In this case, he still wanted to chat with his sister, and I'm like, "That's fantastic." Here, so I just gave him the whole packet, and you're like, "Mike, you're crazy." Okay, maybe. But guess what? We're getting into more of the details, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to need a spare key for the front door. Do you want to give that to me now, or do you want to give it to me later?" And he said, "Oh, you're here now. Why don't I just give it to you now?" So I already have a key to the front door, so I'm pretty sure that everything's going to move along pretty smoothly, and that's been my experience over time. And by the way, if you leave it with them and they review it and they don't like something, you can either change it if you want to. If they decide that they want to hire someone else or rip it up, well, then it wasn't going to work out anyway. That's kind of my opinion. I'm trying to give you a bunch of tips that can help you out as you're going along. If you have questions, by the way, go ahead and put them down in the comments section. I'll try to answer your questions about what happened and the way it went. What else can I tell you? The appointment went for about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm pretty rusty, but I also have a philosophy when I've always done listings, which is I'd rather take a lot of time up front, answer all the questions, and get everything off on the right foot. In my experience, that will get things going smoother with less questions and problems down the line. Because again, I'm answering all this guy's questions. He has tons and tons of questions, they're all good questions. They're all things you should know. And anyway, my opinion is you should invest the time up front and get that relationship started right so that everything goes smooth. Now, in the old days, I remember, I think it was Mike Ferry say, "Yo, you can go list one in 10 minutes." And I think I went and did that. And then just all the phone calls and questions. And we probably spent another 10 hours trying to explain everything to them after the fact, piecemeal, a 5-minute here and a 10-minute here. And, so to me, it's better to just get it all out there. So I'd say if you were to split it up, it took about an hour, a little bit less for the actual presentation. And then we did the paperwork. Boom. We got interrupted in the middle because his neighbor came over to ask him some questions about, he was doing some fix up. So he introduced me to the neighbor. And then he says, "Oh, this neighbor's thinking about moving." I'm like, great. And I'd already said hello. And he said, "Do you have a card for her?" And I said, "Here you go." And she said, "Oh, thank you so much." And when I left, I ended up seeing her and she waved and said hi. Anyway, so who knows? Maybe there's even another piece of business there. A lot of good things happen when you're in a good state and you're just helping people out. Okay. That's all this business is helping people out. That's something else he mentioned, by the way, at the end. He's like, everybody else I talk to is a salesman and you want to run from salesman. I'm like, okay. I said, technically I am a salesman. And he says, "Yeah, but you don't seem like a salesman." I said, "Well, what do I seem like?" He says, "You seem like an advisor." Like, yeah, okay. That's correct. I'm just trying to help you out, give you all the information. Back to the hours. After I explained the hours, he said, "Yeah, that totally makes sense. Why would anybody want to work in the evenings and weekends?" We have such a weird view of this business. I am guilty of it too. I used to work crazy hours, 7 days a week, 10, 12, 14-hour days. It was insane. I almost got divorced over it. You don't have to do that. People will work with you, and if they won't, then they're the wrong people. Anyway, I know I've been babbling a long time. I just wanted to share the fun experience that I just had. To wrap it all up, took the first listing off of a postcard to a perfect stranger, never had met this person before, who was a for sale by owner who got our card and had called us and said, "Hey, I want to know more about that." And we just went along. And I was able through that conversation. I guess I should have told you some of this, but yeah, I don't know how long this little call, this little video is going on. But basically, that first phone conversation was probably 15 to 20 minutes long. He had a lot of questions, and we got to the end, and I basically said, I'd be happy to meet you in person and explain some of this information and take a look at your property and show you how much you probably can sell your home for, how long it's going to take, what you're going to walk out of closing with, answer any questions you have about the program to sell it. And he's like, yeah, great. When do you want to do that? So, uh, excuse me. It's amazing what will happen if you just kind of put it into your little system and flow. All right. If you got any questions, go ahead and put them down in the comments. If you like this material, if you've been enjoying this, give us a thumbs up on this video. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you can get these videos when they come out. I'll try to drop some whenever I can and keep you in the loop with what's happening with this program and try to give you some tidbits to see if it can help you. And if you have any friends, any real estate friends that are looking to get 2 listings per month from strangers through a mail out campaign instead of cold calling. And by the way, cold calling absolutely works. It's just, it takes a lot of time and it's a different structure. This guy had mentioned, by the way, that he had been talking to people who had called him and they seemed kind of on the attack. Like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's a little different strategy. But remember, he called me, which makes it a lot easier for the whole conversation. Anyway, if you enjoyed all this, give us a thumbs up, stick around, and I hope this has all been helpful. And you take care. Bye now.